This is Plant-Based Briefing, the side effects of artificial food coloring and dyes, including cancer and ADHD, by Michael Greger, MD, at nutritionfacts.org. And I'm Marian Erickson. This is the curated content plant-based podcast, where I narrate a variety of articles on plant-based and vegan living with permission in about 10 minutes or less every weekday. And I'm thrilled to have permission from Nutrition Facts to share their content. They're one of the go-to sources for nutrition information. They're a non-commercial, science-based public service, nonprofit, founded by Dr. Michael Greger to provide free updates on the latest in nutrition and health research with no conflicts of interest. There are no ads, no corporate sponsorships. They're not trying to sell you supplements or sell you anything. Even the best-selling books that he writes, 100% of proceeds from the books, from his speaking engagements, from his DVDs, have always and will always be donated to charity. It's truly a public service. And Dr. Greger founded this organization because there's a lot of confusing and conflicting nutritional advice out there, usually presented by people with a financial interest or by doctors or medical professionals who haven't been trained in nutrition or have been trained in nutrition by people with a financial interest. And yes, Dr. Greger lives a whole food plant-based lifestyle, and some may say he's biased because of that. But he and many of the other plant-based doctors are plant-based because of the science, because they believe the thousands of studies proving that it is the healthiest way to live. So now let's get to today's plant-based briefing. The side effects of artificial food coloring and dyes, including cancer and ADHD, by Dr. Michael Greger at nutritionfacts.org. Excluding artificial food colors from children's diets can improve ADHD symptoms. Nearly 50 years ago, Cedars-Sinai Chief of Pediatrics Ben Feingold published Heresy, suggesting that artificial food colors could induce behavioral disturbances. Dow Chemical disagreed, as did Coca-Cola, as well as other players within the trillion-dollar processed food industry, who were able to convince the medical establishment that it was all just one elaborate placebo effect. But the truth can only be buried for so long. In 2004, a randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled food challenge was published. Hyperactivity in preschoolers was reduced significantly when artificial colorings and the preservative sodium benzoate were eliminated from their diets. But hyperactivity jumped back up when the additives, rather than a placebo, were reintroduced into their diets. The researchers suggest that benefit would accrue for all children if they didn't consume artificial food colors or benzoate preservatives. Then another randomized, double-blind, placebo-controlled food challenge was published in probably the most prestigious medical journal in the world. This time, researchers found that artificial colors and other food additives in processed foods appeared to exacerbate hyperactive behaviors, inattention, impulsivity, and overactivity among young children, with more pronounced effects in 3-year-olds relative to 8 or 9-year-olds. And indeed, a more recent randomized controlled trial in 8 or 9-year-olds in Hong Kong didn't observe a significant effect. The authors suggested it may be because older children may be less sensitive, or the dose used was too small relative to what the kids typically consumed. But what happens in children already diagnosed with ADHD if you remove artificial food colors? In a meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials for dietary interventions for ADHD, excluding artificial food colors from the diet significantly improved behavior. In this meta-analysis linked here, this data suggests that food colors were harmful, whether assessed by parents, observers, or attention tests, compared to some studies showing the opposite. But you can actually see the difference in brain waves on EEG compared to placebo. As I highlighted years ago, the European Union requires warning labels of potential adverse effects on activity and attention in children. However, although the FDA in the United States has banned a few artificial colors like red dye number 1, red dye number 2, and red dye number 4 due to cancer concerns, no warning labels are required, and many artificial colors still predominate processed foods. Among grocery store products marketed to children, about 40% contain at least one artificial color. In 2021, a report from the California Environmental Protection Agency highlighted the potential neurobehavioral effects of artificial food dyes in children. The authors concluded that although not all studies implicated them, the current medical literature provides a substantial amount of evidence that consumption of synthetic food dyes is associated with adverse neurobehavioral outcomes in kids, and that the FDA's acceptable daily intake levels may not adequately protect children. For years, I've been concerned that red number 3 still hasn't been banned from food, given that it was banned more than 30 years ago from inclusion in any products that go on our skin due to cancer risk. Finally, in October 2023, the California Food Safety Act was signed, banning red dye number 3 from food and drink sold throughout the state, while consumer groups, including the Center for Science in the Public Interest, continue to petition the FDA for a national ban to prohibit use of this carcinogen. You just listened to The Side Effects of Artificial Food Coloring and Dyes, Including Cancer and ADHD by Michael Greger, MD at nutritionfacts.org, and I'm your host, Marian Erickson. Food dyes have been in the news lately because the FDA is now announcing an understanding with industry to phase out synthetic food dyes. So I did want to read to you some information from the Environmental Working Group's statement on the recent announcement from the FDA. It was dated April 22, 2025, and begins, "Today, following the lead of state legislators, the Trump administration announced an understanding with industry to phase out harmful petroleum-based synthetic food dyes. The dyes serve no purpose beyond making ultra-processed food brighter and more appealing, and they're linked to serious health harms, including neurobehavioral problems in children." Health and Human Services Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and FDA Commissioner Marty Makary said they plan to phase out dyes by the end of 2026. While the announcement is welcome, the FDA for decades has failed to act on banning dyes in food. The FDA waited more than 30 years to prohibit the known carcinogen red dye number 3 from food and drink, despite banning it from cosmetics in 1990 due to its health harms. That inaction led states to take the lead on regulating or banning these concerning chemicals. And then it goes to list various states and what the chemicals are that they have banned, and concludes with, "The Food and Drug Administration has known for decades that synthetic food dyes are linked to health problems, particularly in children, but has failed to act. We're hopeful that the FDA may follow the lead of states by finally announcing their intent to ban dyes. To be clear, however, an understanding with industry is neither a settlement nor a ban." So please share this episode with anyone who might benefit, and thanks for listening.